What's up, everybody? It's Joe here with Joseph Blake Photography, and in today's video, we're going to be talking about the fact that Sony is now #1 in sales last quarter in Japan. And let's talk about lenses too. So we're going to talk about Sony overtaking Canon, and we're going to talk about some Canon lens news. But before we get into that, just really quick, I'm Joe. This is my channel, Joseph Blake Photography. Over here, we talk about gear and news and tech. And if you are a content creator or someone who is making and creating with cameras and lenses and computers and phones and any kind of creation where this technology is involved, we talk about that here on the channel, and I would love for you to be a part of it, and I would love for you to hit subscribe to this channel. If at the end of the video you think I've done a good job, please hit the like button if you think that this is the kind of video that I should be making for you, and that tells the algorithm that I'm doing the right thing. Also, you can find me on all the socials, links down below and across the screen and all that kind of stuff, but let's talk more about that at the end. Let's jump into these numbers. So BCN is a firm that tracks sales of cameras in Japan specifically. And that's a big deal considering the fact that really the biggest players in the market are Japanese companies. As we look at the big players in the market in the mirrorless side of things, which I think we can all admit that's going to be the majority of sales going forward. Mirrorless is where we're at. DSLRs are dead. And mirrorless also includes those smaller, not point and shoot, but smaller cameras that don't have a traditional pentaprism lift-up optical solution. And Sony is on top at 33% of the sales market of mirrorless cameras, with Canon at 25%. And what makes this really big is that if you look back just a little bit to 2023, Canon was over 40% of those sales. So that is a huge drop. That is a 15% drop from the previous year. But Sony has only gone up 1%. And I think that's really the story here. It's not about Sony being #1 and Canon being #2 and suddenly falling off the map. I think it's the fact that the market has begun to redistribute, because it's not just Sony that's coming up, it's Nikon, it's Fuji, and it's other players in the market. Nikon saw a 4% increase from 13-ish% to about 17%. Fuji went from a little over 8% to almost 11%. And according to BCN, Fuji, this is the first time that Fuji has actually shown up on this list in the top 4 in 24 years. Nice job, Fuji. Because competition in the market is great. Having more options is better for consumers, and it pushes those companies to work harder for our dollars and to innovate faster and more often and not just skate. Now, thinking back to, okay, so we're going to have the A7, A7R, and we're going to have the Nikon Z6 Mark II. We're going to have all of these high-end full-frame cameras. The R5, the R6. Nope. The #1 camera on the list is Sony's vlogging camera, the ZV-E10. That is a mini APS-C interchangeable lens camera. It's super capable, but it's definitely not the full frame beast of a camera that you traditionally see from these manufacturers, or that we think about when we think about the marketing of these cameras. Now, this vlogging camera did get a lot of press and marketing, but it's not, I think, what we traditionally think about when we think about the top selling or best camera from Sony, like the A9. And the next few cameras, I think, tell us the same story. These are cameras that are less expensive, but not cheap. These are not cheap cameras, they're just less expensive, and yet still very versatile, and they still get you into the ecosystem of these cameras. The next two cameras on the list are the Canon R50 and the Canon R10, both APS-C censored cameras with various features that present a great value, especially for the R50, great value for the money, and get you into a phenomenal mirrorless system. Next is the Sony a6400. So the #4 camera on this list is 5 years old. That should tell you what people are looking for. They're looking for value and quality. The a6400 is a phenomenal camera. It is again, interchangeable lens with E-mount, APS-C with a phenomenal sensor. I think it's 24 megapixels. Shoots 4K, has a touch flip-out screen. Rounding out the list, the Nikon Z30, the Fuji X-T50. The only full-frame camera on here is the A7C Mark II. I can feel the hybrid shooters on this list. The Nikon ZFC, the Lumix G100D, and lastly, the Nikon Z50. So why isn't Canon at the top of this list in total sales, and why don't they have more cameras on this top 10 list? Two reasons. Number one, I think a lot of people there's been a lot of pent-up demand for an update to the R5. Not in terms of the top 10 list, because that camera's not going to hit the top 10 list, but in terms of total sales. The R5 Mark II has been rumored for over a year. The R1 has been rumored for 2 years. 3 has been, to be quite honest, a bit of a question mark. And now that they have been announced, the R5 still won't be available really for purchase to get into people's hands until the end of this month. And who knows when we're officially going to be able to get the R1, even though I don't think anybody's going to buy that one. So the R5 Mark II and the R6 Mark II, right? These push a lot of the dollars on the sales percentage. And why are they not at the top? People have been waiting for the R5 forever. And now that it's finally here, even though Canon executives in interviews have said, we want to make sure that we have everything available for the folks who want to buy our cameras. And then the minute that they announce the cameras, the pre-orders start showing shipping delays. And we now have basically announcements on a huge list of Canon products that say, yeah, we're not going to have enough of these to fulfill demand. And we don't know if that means that the demand is super high or if they just don't have enough. Their reduced availability list includes the R1, the R5 Mark II, the cooling grip, the hot shoe cover, the larger eye cup, the BG20 grip with the Ethernet port, the rain cover, power adapter, the new battery pack, the RF 200 to 800, and the Speedlight EL1. They have a huge list that just says we're going to ship them out as soon as we get them, but they will be delayed. That's just one part of why they are not as high up on this list. They've had delays in their ability to announce their products. These products have been rumored for a while, which means people don't buy if they're worried that the minute that they buy something, the next version is going to be announced. And when they do buy it, there aren't enough of them to buy. So that's the first reason. The second reason is that honestly, in the lower end, more budget-friendly part of the market, they don't have a lot of options. And part of that is because they're still moving into mirrorless. If you think about the way that most of these companies, especially Canon, operate their camera distribution, you normally have your high-end cameras, right? Your R1, your R3, your R5, your R6, and the feature sets there, the processors, the focusing technology, flipping screens, and all of that sort of thing. And you then migrate that down your line over time. And then you release those more budget-friendly products that don't have all the features, or maybe some of those features aren't as capable, but you can do it in a more plasticky body that's less weather sealed and maybe can't shoot as fast. And people eat that stuff up. They love it, especially with these new hybrid mirrorless cameras. But remember, I said the A6400 was 5 years old. When the A6400 came out, the top of the line mirrorless camera from Canon was the R and the RP, and we had had them for 1 year. Really less than a year. While Sony was putting out the third or fourth iteration of their APS-C Mini with great eye track AF and a great price point, Canon was saying, I think we're going to give mirrorless a try. And they're still titrating all of that down into their low end or their budget friendly value products. They started at the high end and slowly worked their way down, which is why now the Rebel series has just now started to be replaced. Not to mention the fact that they've really just recently put the M series to bed. And now they're finally filling out the bottom end of the lineup. We have our R50 and our R100 and our R10. And I'm not necessarily saying I want to go back to the way that it was with the lineup being just absolutely crazy and mixed up, but we had the 2000D and the 9000D and the 77D and the 90D and there was a lot of Ds. And I'm not saying that we want to go back to that many cameras necessarily, but right now the whole lineup is the R1, the R3, the R5 Mark II, the R6 Mark II, the R7, the R8, the R10, the R50, and the R100. But that's relatively new, right? Up until just a few years ago, we only had 3 or 4 of the top end of that lineup. So Canon's going to have to take some time to fill that back out. But the other issue are the lenses. Now, I'm going to talk about lenses that are coming out, or at least some of the patents that we've seen on those. And I do have a big lens explainer video that I'm working on where I map out the entire current roadmap of Canon lenses in the RF mount. Honestly, it's so people will stop asking me which lens to buy or what lenses does Canon have. But I can tell you what's not on that list, and that's anything from anyone other than Canon. Now, I've been a Canon shooter since 2008, I think. I love Canon. I really do. I like a lot of things about Canon. But let me tell you, my favorite lenses are not just Canon lenses. Now, don't get me wrong, I have an EF8514 that actually has one of the highest DxO scores for resolution. It's image stabilized. I love that lens. It's my favorite portrait lens. But my favorite lens probably of all time, or at least the lens that I've probably shot the most in terms of stills with, is this guy. This is a Tamron 24-70 f2.8 DIVC. It is heavy and it is loud, but it focuses super fast. It works great with an EF to RF adapter. I have sent it back twice for service and repair over the years. Tamron has been great to me on this lens. The image stabilization is phenomenal. It feels amazing in the hand. And honestly, I love this lens, and it's 11 years old for me, but I absolutely love this lens. The other lens that I really love is actually the lens that I'm shooting on right now, and it's the lens that I shoot almost all of my videos like this, and that is a Sigma 35mm 1.4 art. EF mount, I have it adapted right now. It is also very loud when it focuses. It's not super fast to focus, but it is beautiful, and I love it for video when I have an off-body microphone because it's loud. But I love this lens. So the two lenses that I probably have used the most are not Canon lenses. Now, I have an RF 24-105. I have an RF 14-35. There's a review coming out this week about that lens. I love that lens. I've got the 70-200 f2.8 from Canon. I've got the 50mm prime from Canon. There's lots of Canon lenses that I have or have had over the past few years that I absolutely adore. But if you want people to buy into these more budget-friendly cameras and be in that top 10 of sold units and build up your total market share, you need to support third-party lenses, and it needs to be more than just the RFS, the APS-C line of lenses. You need to let other folks get in on the action because they're not going to spend money on your cameras if they can't afford the lenses that you sell. And that means that they're not going to buy the APS-C camera and then some lenses for it and then think, I want to stay in this ecosystem and buy a better camera and then upgrade the lenses. That's how it goes, right? You replace your body every once in a while, but you keep those lenses forever almost if they're good, but they stay in your ecosystem, and sometimes they do buy your lens. But speaking of lenses, let's talk about some patents that we saw in the last week or so from Canon about what they might, right? This is obviously not a guarantee that they're going to build or release these lenses, but these are some of the things that we've seen from the patent office. A 180mm f3.5 macro prime. That doesn't sound like a value proposition. Who is that lens for? I understand that it's just a patent, right? But the marketing guys are going to get that and they're going to say, don't make that. We can't sell that to anybody. Who's going to shoot with that? A 300mm f4 macro, okay, and a 100mm f4 macro. Now, they have a 100mm macro right now, and that is the 2.8L macro IS USM. And that one goes for about $1,100. So if the f4 version is a non-L version that's maybe $500 or $600 at an f4 with a 100mm macro, that could be a couple different things. That could be a portrait lens. That could be a lot of really interesting things. So that one might not be too bad. And then we've got some zooms with variable apertures. So we've got a 400 to 600, we've got a 300 to 600, and a 70 to 300 that are basically 2.8 to f4, f4.5. These feel a lot like the old gold ring USM lenses that we used to have in the EF, although the 75 to 300, that was a garbage lens. It was from the film days, right? But these actually look like they might be something that might appeal to folks looking for a quality zoom. Maybe they're shooting sports and wildlife, but they don't need to spend thousands and thousands of dollars. And next we have a 15 to 28 f2.8 and a 17 to 30 f2.8. That seems super cool, since right now at the wide end, you are really looking at either L lenses or the very inexpensive very lower quality RFS and the kind of kit lens style lenses that you can get from Canon right now. So 17 to 30 2.8 feels like a really cool kind of small, lightweight travel lens if you are maybe shooting with the R50, the R10. That would be a super lightweight kit. That sounds like it would be really intriguing. So honestly, that's what we've got for the Canon situation. Sales are down in Japan, which is a mirror of the rest of probably Europe and the States. We'll see how much penetration the R50, the R100, the R10, and maybe other versions of that style of camera get as we see more from Canon. We'll see how much of a bump the R5 Mark II and the R1 give Canon in terms of total sales, but they have to find a way to appeal to those budget-minded shooters. And maybe the fact that we're going to see price drops for things like the R5 Mark I, maybe as we see the R6 Mark III rumored more, the R6 Mark II pricing might come down a little bit, and maybe we might see just drive down. And if they can get deals with these third-party lens manufacturers, then I think that we will see more people willing to get into Canon. But let me tell you this, right? I'm an elder millennial, and when I look at Instagram and I look at young influencers in the world of photography and videography showing off what their tips and tricks are, I see them all shooting with Sony. Canon needs to get back in the game. I feel like Canon is the old man's camera now. But we do spend money, but that's not a cool place to be. So hopefully they can figure all that out and we'll start to see cool stuff from Canon soon. So that's it from me for today's video. Comment down below if you have recently purchased one of the cameras on this list, or if you have one of these, or kind of how are you looking at the market? What are you about to buy or not? And as always, if this is the type of content that you're interested in, please give a like to this video. It does a huge help to the channel. It's free and it tells the algorithm that I am doing the right thing in creating this type of content. If you want to see more from me and this channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and hit the bell so that you're notified when I create new videos. For folks who are subscribed to the channel, real quick, I just want to tell you, thank you so much. I'm seeing more and more engagement from subscribers of the channel specifically, and more of my subscribers as a total percentage are watching my videos, and more of my subscribers have been turning on the bell. So thank you so much. That helps the channel quite a bit because it tells me that I am providing a value to you. You're providing your time. But again, if you're not a subscriber and you want to be a part of that group, you want to be in our little community, go ahead and hit the subscribe button and turn the bell on. I do want to alert everyone that I have turned on the membership option here on the channel. Not a big deal, just a little thing that I wanted to do for the folks who are interested in a little bit of member-only content. Don't worry, I'm not going to keep a lot behind a paywall. Mostly just some live videos, chats, and an opportunity to talk together about some of these things. So please consider taking advantage of that. It does help me to continue making these videos and this type of content. Another way that you can help out the channel is if you see the links down below or the links that are in the YouTube video itself, those are product recommendations. Some of it is gear that I actually use or gear that I talk about in my videos. And if you purchase either through the links or through YouTube directly, I do earn a bit of a commission. It is an affiliates program, and that really helps me continue making these videos. And another free way that you can help out the channel is to find me on all the various social media platforms that I show here and link down below. I try to be as many places as I can. I'm also resurrecting my blog, so you'll be seeing that soon, and I'll be linking some of these videos there, as well as posting tips and tricks and downloadable content like LUTs, Lightroom presets, and Motion and After Effects plugins. And a lot of those will be free because I make them for myself because I'm tired of paying for them and I want to give them to you, and I'll do some videos to show you how to make them. If that's something that you're into, go ahead and again, hit subscribe if you're not already. And lastly, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.